Hi, Brian Neunaber here. In this video, I'd like to talk about using expression control with the ILLUMINE Reverb. An expression controller is often a continuous foot-operated control, sometimes called a treadle. It might also be an external knob that you adjust using your hand or foot. You use an expression controller to change parameters in real time as you play, and the changes are made smoothly over a range of values. A switch may also be used as an expression controller, although in this case, you will be switching between two discrete settings. ILLUMINE's built-in AB Footswitch is an expression controller that allows this transition to occur over a specified period of time. You can also use a control voltage with ILLUMINE's expression input. While we won't be discussing this here, it is described in ILLUMINE's user guide. ILLUMINE's expression control engine. ILLUMINE allows you to control any number of the 5 top-level parameters with a single expression controller. You may choose the range over which each parameter is changed. In addition, you may choose one of 3 control trajectories for each parameter. This control configuration is stored individually for each preset, so you can fully specify which parameters are controlled and how in each preset. Let's take a look at how the expression control engine maps an expression controller to a parameter. In this plot, the horizontal axis is the expression input. If this is an expression pedal, heel down would be on the left and toe down on the right. If this is the AB Footswitch, the A state is on the left and B state on the right. Here we have selected the 50% midpoint trajectory. This simply means that when the expression input is at its midpoint, or halfway, the parameter value will also be at 50% of its range. Let's take a look at the 25% midpoint trajectory. This means that the midpoint of the expression input will map to 25% of the parameter range. As you see here, this pushes more of the parameter change toward the toe down position. The 75% midpoint trajectory will result in the midpoint of the expression input mapping to 75% of the parameter range. This pushes more of the parameter change toward the heel down position. Let's change the trajectory back to 50% midpoint. Now, suppose we want our minimum parameter value to be 20% and maximum to be 60%. This is what the trajectory would look like. The midpoint is at 40%, or halfway between 20 and 60%. If we change the trajectory to 25% midpoint, the midpoint becomes 30%, or 1/4 of the way between 20 and 60%. And for the 75% midpoint trajectory, the midpoint becomes 50%, or 3/4 of the way between 20 and 60%. You may also set the heel down value to a parameter value larger than the toe down value, so the parameter decreases as you increase the expression input. Expression controller setup. Here are the types of expression controllers you can use with ILLUMINE. An expression pedal with a TRS or tip ring sleeve connection, a passive volume pedal such as the Ernie Ball VP Jr., the AB Footswitch on ILLUMINE. Here, long pressing the left side footswitch toggles between A and B settings, or MIDI control change message 11. This is a global selection, so whichever you choose, it will be the same for all presets. To select the expression controller, navigate to Global Setup, EXP Source, and select one of the available options. None, which disables expression control, AB Footswitch, Expression Pedal, Volume Pedal, or MIDI CC11. AB Footswitch. This selection uses the onboard AB Footswitch to toggle between the two ends of a controlled parameter's range. The AB Footswitch is toggled by long pressing the left side footswitch. The A to B and B to A transitions occur over user selectable times from 1/2 to 60 seconds in factor of 2 increments. These transition times are configured as part of a preset and may be different for each preset. Expression Pedal. Connect the EXP input to the TRS connector of the expression pedal. You can use a 3.5mm TRS adapter or a 3.5mm TRS to 1/4 inch TRS cable, whichever is more convenient. Expression pedal calibration. Some expression controllers do not go all the way down to 0% or up to 100%. By specifying the minimum and maximum values of the controller, ILLUMINE's expression control engine can calibrate the expression input to fill the full range of values. After selecting the expression pedal as your source, turn to the next screen. You are presented with the option to calibrate the heel value of the expression pedal. Press the expression pedal heel down. The percent value shown will indicate the controller input value. If you have an expression pedal with a minimum value knob, you should turn it until the percent value is as close to 0 as possible. Then press the bottom knob. This saves the heel down calibration value. Turn to the next screen and you are presented with the option to calibrate the toe value. Press the expression pedal toe down and press the bottom knob to store the calibration value. You may notice that minimum or maximum values on your expression pedal change slightly depending on how much pressure is applied or how quickly you change it. The calibration screens allow you to manually adjust the values in order to add a dead zone to the ends of the controller. Adding dead zones ensures that you always reach the ends of the range, regardless of how the controller is moved. To add dead zones, adjust the heel value up and toe value down by 1 or 2%. Volume pedal. Only passive or unpowered volume pedals will work as an expression controller with ILLUMINE. Use a 3.5mm to dual 1/4 inch TS cable, also called a stereo breakout cable. The HOSA CMP153 is an example. Connect the right or ring plug to the volume pedal's input, the left or tip plug to the volume pedal's output, and the 3.5mm TRS plug to ILLUMINE's EXP jack. Volume pedal calibration. I'm using the Ernie Ball BP Jr. in this example because it performs well as an expression controller. This is the model 6180 with a 250k ohm potentiometer. You may also use model 6181, which has a 25k ohm potentiometer. Either works with ILLUMINE. Calibrating the heel down and toe down positions of the volume pedal is the same as that of the expression pedal. However, an additional calibration screen is required to linearize the pedal's taper. Expression pedals are linear controllers, while volume pedals have an audio taper sweep. ILLUMINE will compensate for this audio taper, making it appear like a linear expression pedal. Turn to the screen after Cal Pedal Toe, which is Cal Pedal Middle. If your volume pedal has a selection switch for the taper, like this one, set the treadle somewhere in the middle and select the switch position that results in the higher expression value on the screen. By default, ILLUMINE is calibrated for an Ernie Ball VP Jr. with the taper switch in the up position. For all other volume pedals, there are two methods to perform calibration. The first is easier but less accurate. Set the volume pedal to the halfway point between heel down and toe down, then press the bottom knob. The second is more difficult but more accurate. Slowly sweep the volume pedal while watching the change in expression value. You will notice a breakpoint at which the value changes accelerate. This value is typically around 15 to 25%. Set the pedal at this breakpoint value and press the bottom knob. MIDI CC11. Send MIDI control change message 11 on the same channel as ILLUMINE. You may send either 1 byte or 2 byte values. Usually, you would keep the default calibration values of minimum equals 0% and maximum equals 100%. However, there may be instances in which you wish to reduce this range, and you may do so in a manner similar to what I described for the expression pedal calibration. Using expression control in a preset. Let's see how to use an expression controller to control the parameters in a preset. We'll start by using an expression pedal as our input. Return to the top-level menu and navigate to the EXP Setup menu. Here is where you can choose which parameters you want to control and which control trajectory you want to use for each. To enable expression control over a parameter, change its EXP parameter to the trajectory you want to use, either 25, 50, or 75% midpoint. If you are unsure, start with 50% midpoint. Setting a range versus a value. When you enable expression control over a parameter, this parameter's value will be defined by a range. The endpoints of this range are now accessible in the top-level menu. If you're using an expression pedal, these will appear as .heel and .toe values. If using the AB Footswitch, these will be .a and .b. If using MIDI for expression control, these will be .min and .max. To disable expression control over a parameter, change its EXP parameter value to off. In this case, the parameter value will revert to the .toe, .b, or .max parameter previously defined by the expression range. Selecting control trajectory. When adjusting the expression controller, if it sounds like the parameter changes too much in the lower part of the range, try changing its trajectory to 25% midpoint. If the parameter changes too much in the upper part of the range, try changing its trajectory to 75% midpoint. Setting the A to B and B to A times. When the AB Footswitch is selected as the expression controller, the A to B and B to A transition times may be selected at the end of the AB setup menu. Okay, let's run through a couple examples where I construct a preset that uses expression control. I've got my little AMT expression pedal. I've got ILLUMINE already configured to use with an expression pedal. I'm running audio input from my computer. I'll be using some pre-recorded sound clips provided by one of our artists, Kevin Eknes. If you are not familiar with Kevin, I recommend that you check him out. I'll leave his info in the description. We're running the audio output to an audio interface, and that's pretty much it for the setup. This preset will be using the vintage digital algorithm. Here are the effect options. So let's get started. I'm going to start the audio clip in a loop while I talk through what I'm doing to set up this preset. Okay, let's start by enabling the expression control over the mix. I'm going to set it at 50% midpoint to start. Okay, so what I want to do with this preset is configure it so that at heel down I've got a sort of an always on standard sounding reverb, and at toe down bigger ambient style reverb. So let's start with heel down. I'm gonna bring the mix down. And at toe down I'm gonna bring the mix up. Okay, let's move on to the depth. Again, I'm going to start at 50% midpoint. So at heel down, I want it to be a little smaller sounding reverb. And at toe down, I want it to be a much larger sounding reverb. Okay, let's move to the next parameter. So I'm going to set the tone to 50% midpoint because I want the tone to brighten up a little bit when I'm heel down. And then when I'm at toe down, I want a darker, brooding style reverb. And then having that tone brighten up at heel down will help it cut through a little bit, since it's going to have a lower mix value. Okay, and the next parameter is the modulation width. So I want it to sound At heel down, I'm going to keep 50%. But at toe down, I want it to sound more modulated, a lot more modulated. So I'm just gonna turn this all the way up. And then on the level, I think the level's pretty close, but I think it could use a little bit more level at toe down. So we'll start this at 50% midpoint, and I'll set the toe value to a little bit of a boost. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is set the trajectories. I think I'm pretty close, but I want to try setting the depth to 75% midpoint so that it comes up a little bit faster. Let's see if we can tell the difference. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with the mix. I'm going to go ahead and turn the level up on the audio and let you listen to this for a few loops. Okay, let's try a different audio clip with this. Okay, so now let's listen to that same preset that I just constructed, but using the A-B switch instead. I'm going to start this audio clip, and I'm going to adjust the A to B and B to A times so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, so one thing I want to mention here are a few little functions that are built in when using the AB Footswitch. If you're in the middle of a transition, and this really only matters if you have a transition of more than a couple seconds, if you long press the AB Footswitch in the middle of a transition, it will stop and turn around and go back to the state that you started at. If you short press the AB Footswitch when you're in the middle of a transition, it will jump forward to the destination state. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that for you. I'm going to stretch out the A to B and B to A times so you can clearly see what's happening here. And that's it for this video, in which I described how expression control works with the ILLUMINE Reverb. So, what did you think about this video? Please let me know in the comments if you found this video helpful, and if you have any suggestions for a future video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.